Okay, this question has an easy bit and a hard bit. So here's the easy bit. Find her monthly rate at the end of the 2 years. A lot of people ask me, like, what does respectively mean? Respectively just means in that order and like one at a time, okay? So one of the years, her rate increases 4.5%, the other year, 5.1. Okay, and we have the order. So that means 4.5 first and then 5.1. So to work out her monthly rate, can you see what I've done over here, right? Do you notice I didn't multiply by 4.5%, I multiplied by 1 and then the 4.5%? Why did I do that for? Okay, so if I had multiplied by this, what you're going to get is the increase, but not what she's actually paying. Okay, so this is kind of like what was happening over here. Whoops, I lost it. Over here in the compound interest formula, right? That's where that's why the 1 is there. Okay, it's telling you, will give me the total value. In the same way, I want to work out, well, what's her total rate? So I have the 1 there, and I also have it there. So that's just calculator work, okay? Now, for this next bit, we could have a long discussion about it. Sorry, did you want to ask something? Yeah?
I got the 13170. I did something different from you, but then I divided by the 12 times.
Okay,
so I had that number.
Yeah, sure.
I didn't
So
that a different month.
yeah, sure. So you would probably I did ask to hold on the questions before, so I'll make this quick because I do want to answer your questions, just not now. Have I told you what this acronym means? Have I referred to it before?
I think you have.
Ignore subsequent error. So the idea is, okay, maybe you got the right answer, and then you did some extra stuff. And sometimes we'll say, no, that's cool. You demonstrated what we wanted you to demonstrate. So I'm just going to politely pretend that all that other stuff is not there. I will ignore subsequent error. Okay. Now, in this case, I want you to have a think, right? If you as the marker, rhetorical question, don't give me the answer. I'll give you what the actual answer is in a second. If you as the marker saw a student and they wrote this, I don't know what it is, like 100 and something, I don't know, whatever it is, okay? If you as the marker saw this, rhetorical question, would you be inclined to ignore that error or to say, no, I'm going to actually deduct a mark for this? Okay, just think about it for a second. Now, as a marker, looking at the way this question is phrased, I would not ignore that error, and I'll tell you why, okay? Look at what the question is asking, and look at how the question is phrased. When I have a look at this, there's a few different things that are being assessed. I mean, clearly, okay, can you multiply numbers? Really, actually, that's not the real issue, because your calculator does that. The other question is like, well, what is the question asking for? And it clearly asks for something that requires interpretation. Do you know what the monthly rate is? Can you look at the wording of the question and say, okay, I don't need to do any multiplication or division. That is the monthly rate. So therefore, this is out of place. Okay, it shows actually I don't understand what that rate is earlier, or I did understand, but I just executed it incorrectly. Okay, so in a case like this, I wouldn't ignore subsequent error, but see, that's the thing. Like on another question in a different context, I might. Okay, but I hope that makes sense for this. Okay. Now, let me give my rationale for why Michael's getting shafted, okay? Here's what's sneaky about this. If you, and this is an interpretation question, okay? If I zoom back out for a second, right? If you answered part A, let me get some of this messy stuff out of the way. If you answered part A for Michael instead of Megan, okay? You're gonna get the same number. You're gonna get the $1,317.95, okay? Which is where the trick lies, okay? So you think, okay, well, at the end of the 2 years, therefore, they've paid the same amount, therefore, neither of them pays more, okay? Now, here's the reason why Michael actually does. Look carefully. There are 2 years. 2 years. And the fact that the respective thing means something here is important. Because Michael gets the 5.1% increase first, and then the 4.5%, do you see, you can actually go ahead, you can crunch these numbers. I calculated these myself. If you did it year by year, in the first year, clearly Michael pays more because his has increased by more. I mean, not by much, but 0.6%, it's not negligible, okay? So you can see that's the number you'll get out if you just do the first year's increase. By the second year, their differences balance out, but that doesn't overcome the fact that Megan has actually paid less for that whole first year, okay? So even though these amounts, whoopsie daisy, these amounts end up the same, you have to pay attention to the fact that that happened too. And that a whole 12 months, Michael's been paying more. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's a tricky question. Last one. What this required was for you to, this is why I gave you the formula data sheet, by the way. Mathematics and driving, it's been a little while since you looked at depreciation. Looks just like the compound interest formula, right? Because it's the same kind of principle. So hopefully you saw, okay, this is the formula I need to use. Maybe you needed to...
I always do that. I'm like, why is it so different?
Maybe the part that was hard was to recognize that the formula and data sheet, it tells you what all of those things are. It tells you what S and V naught and R and N are representing. But you've got it, well, what does salvage value mean? Salvage is about when you've got something that's left behind, okay? Like salvaging a wreck is the way I always remembered it. So the salvage value is the smaller number. It's what it goes to, okay? You can quickly work out, by the way, if you go through this and you're like, oh, out here you're going to get a negative number if you try and swap the numbers around, okay? So that's kind of another clue that something may have gone wrong. But that's the process I went through, so I hope the working makes sense.